It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Anime Movie Podcast, The AMP.
The AMP.
We are your hosts. I'm Joe.
I'm Kat.
And today we are reviewing a Satoshi Kon film. My heart beats faster because I, according to Kat, am a Satoshi Kon fanatic. Which I guess could be seen as true. I own all of his films.
Yeah.
But today we are going over Millennium Actress. It is a 2001 film. And yeah. What'd you think of it? Satoshi Kon? Fan? Not a fan? Somewhere in the middle?
I love Satoshi Kon.
Oh, sounds like a fanatic over here.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, so far I haven't seen a bad movie that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
I think this film does some great injustice to female empowerment on a couple of different levels. But I also think that it is an entertaining film, an interesting film, and a very watchable film.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed this, but it bothered me problematically on a fairly fundamental level.
This is going to be a spoiler thing that that you're going to bring up, or?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go into it any deeper than that.
Okay. I enjoyed it. I was engaged with it the whole time. I thought a lot of the ways that they told the story were very, very creative, albeit a bit confusing at times.
Yeah, should we give like a really brief synopsis of it in a non-spoilery way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Or do you want to do it?
No, yeah, let's see what you got.
Jesus Christ.
No, I was going to go for it, but yeah, let's see. Let's see how good you do. I'll fact check you.
Right. So this production company is shutting down, and its most famed actress has been retired for 30 years or so. And somebody who used to work at that company is now a director for documentaries, and he takes one cameraman up to this actress's house. She hasn't agreed to do any interviews before this. It's surprising that she has agreed to this. And they interview her throughout the film about her life and her career and the difference between reality and cinema kind of start to blur as the story goes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to what's going on in her films and what's going on in her real life. And you can't, it's just, it's a weird kind of look back on the life of someone that doesn't exist. But when I was watching it, I was like, this feels real, Like I was like, this is interesting to watch and it feels real. There is an overall, there's also a mystery going on throughout the film as well. And what they're trying to do is this actress, Chiyoko, she met someone that she fell in love with early on in life. And then it just was like a chance meeting. And then she's trying to find this gentleman again throughout the film. And yeah, that's basically what the movie's about without getting into spoilers. I thought it was pretty well done. I thought it was beautiful at times. I thought that a lot of the animation was really trippy and cool and creative. Yeah.
I feel like Satoshi Kon must, except for Tokyo Godfathers, like every other film that I've watched of his is very much rooted in the what's real and what's not, and how can we blur the lines between what's real and what's not.
Yeah, that's very true. I agree with you. It seems like there's a lot of mind trickery going on for the characters as well as the viewing audience, because a lot of people don't know what's real and what's going on. I mean, even in this movie, like one of the characters is constantly like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, what? But I don't know. I'm usually down for that. It's weird to me that this is the last uh, Satoshi Kon film that I've seen. He only has 4 because he unfortunately died. Um, and this is the last one that I've seen of his. I've seen all of his other previous movies. Um, and the only one that I feel like really stands out, because the rest of them feel kind of linked in that like reality blur, and the only one that sticks out that isn't like that is Tokyo Godfathers, and I think that's the one that I've liked the least.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way, that is the film that feels the least like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, like, the other ones feel very much in this sort of auteur style. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is very Satoshi Kon, and they have extremely different identities within that, but just that broad reality, is this real, is this not, sort of situation is really consistent through those films, except for Tokyo Godfathers.
Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting that you brought up that there's some some issues that you had with it from, I guess, a feminist perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, according to stuff that I've read about it, is considered like a positive feminist movie because we'll talk about it in spoilers.
Sure.
But you want to hear a fun trivia fact about the movie?
Okay.
This is the last major animated film to feature hand-inked cells.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Animated movies after this all moved over to digital ink and paint or computer stuff. There's no CGI in this movie, and it's the last like kind of major animated film, according to the stuff that I've read.
Completely hand-drawn, even the backgrounds, all that.
Yep. Created with hand-inked cells.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think the major difference in the sort of reality blur thing with this film versus some of the other Satoshi Kon films is this one is more about sort of living in the memory of somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and not being totally sure when you're in the memory of something that's real and happened in their life, or the memory of something fictitious that they were playing in or being a part of.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you could really say that this is magical realism. I feel like in some of the other films, it's very much sort of magical realism, or it's sort of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Where science is used as magic, or
Could you explain magical realism?
Sorry. Joe just asked that and then looked at his watch. which made it seem like, can you explain that? But like,
Can you
don't
do it
take very long.
in less than a minute?
Right. Magical realism is situations where you're not in a completely fantastical land, where it's not like oh my Lord, I got a little too gesticular. Where it's not like every single part of what you're seeing is part of a fantasy or is something that's unreal. Instead, there's something very, very realistic about the story, but there are magical elements.
Okay.
So it's like urban girl walking down the street and suddenly a monster appears out from the corner of a building in Manhattan. And then she uses magic. So that's magical realism, because you're like in Manhattan, there's like taxis going by, everything else is realistic, but there's like something magical in the situation.
So like the biggest, I feel like, example of that would probably be like Harry Potter or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, there's moments of magical realism in Harry Potter when it goes more into like, oh, we're in the Muggle world, and then something magical is kind of happening.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that whole story is about living in the magical world that's built there. But there are other stories about people living their daily lives. They're still going to like high school, for example, but they've become a magical girl.
Mm.
And there's situations that kind of pop up. So you still have this realistic situation of what's going on in everyday life, but there's something that comes in.
I guess the reason I brought Harry Potter up is because the only Harry Potter movie that I ever watched was, I think, the 4th one, where the Dementors were in the real world.
Why did you just watch the fourth one?
Some girl wanted to see it on a date, and she was a big Harry Potter fan.
And let me guess, you never read the books.
No, absolutely not. I hated Harry Potter.
You hated Harry Potter, but you never read the books.
No.
So you had no reason to establish why you hated Harry Potter.
When I was a kid, I had a bowl cut and glasses, and everybody called me Harry Potter, so I was like, fuck Harry Potter.
That's a great reason.
Yeah. I got bullied by being called Harry Potter.
You didn't get bullied by the books.
Yeah, so...
The books didn't come up and punch you in the face.
Can't you see how that would turn one off to the books?
I could see why as a child, but not as an adult.
Well, I'm not going to read a child's book as an adult.
My dad read them.
Your dad's a dork. Sorry, Papa Hamilton.
I do think when you make a decision, you kind of staunchly stick with it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and make you like Harry Potter.
Yeah, I won't. God. We're not reviewing Harry Potter, though. We're reviewing Millennium Actress.
Yeah, please get us back on track.
Yes,
I'd
we're
really
reviewing
appreciate
it.
that.
Yeah, Millennium Actress. Enough about Harry Potter and my awful past with him and the books.
I'm sorry.
You're such a jerk. Anyway, so how amped are you about Millennium Actress?
Yeah, I'm pretty amped.
Same. I'm pretty amped too. And if I have to guess, I feel like we're going to have similar numbers coming out of this.
Yeah?
Yeah, when we get to the final crank in our amps. Should we spoil this?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's spoil this. Spoilers!
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
You
God,
can't spoil this,
please
right?
don't.
Spoiler talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk.
All right, you start with the spoilers. This is your take. I did the intro. You did the synopsis. You're the driver in this Millennium Actress seat.
Right. I don't buy this relationship that she's spent her entire life chasing.
Yeah, that was, it was literally the guy bumped into her.
The guy bumped into her and she was knocked down and he helped her up and she was like, oh my God, I love you and I'll try for the rest of my life to try and find you again if I lose you.
Yeah.
Like that is what this is. And it is very much that sort of like Disney animated way that people fall in love. Where it's like, oh, it was love at first sight and it was this chance meeting and like if you break it down and you look at the meet cute, you're like, that's not a meet cute. That's just a thing that happened to you once, briefly.
People bump into each other all the fucking time. Like,
I mean, I remember once I was working in London at the time. It was raining really hard that day. And I was wearing some boots that the soles were pretty worn down. And I was walking really quickly to try and get to the train station because there was a certain train I could get to get home. And if I didn't get that train, the next train didn't come for like 25, 30 minutes. So I was booking it. And I suddenly slipped on the sidewalk and I went down and immediately my butt was wet because it was raining. And this extremely strong man came by and he put his hand underneath my elbow and the other one in my hand and he helped me up to my feet. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my God. Because I mean, I'm not a small person. Being able to like lift me up and basically I didn't even use my own strength to get up. Very impressive.
and this is how you met your husband.
No. But I was married at the time, but I went, oh, thank you. I was like all aflutter.
And that's why your marriage ended.
Oh my God, stop. And then the man walked off and I just had this moment where I was like, oh, that was very chivalrous. Oh, that was, I thought about it for like 20 minutes, but I didn't follow the man for the rest of my life. Like I remember it to this day because it was a nice moment. But from that moment on, I never thought, I need to find this man.
Well, because you were married at the time.
If I wasn't married at the time, I still wouldn't have tried to find that man.
You might have.
Oh my God.
You never know. But no, I completely agree with you. I mean, even Disney movies have more of an establishment of relationship. Like,
Yeah.
This was literally the guy bumped into her. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, helps her up, then runs away. And then the cops come and they're like, we're looking for a guy that maybe bumped into you or some bullshit. I didn't buy it. But they were like, he was carrying, and the dude was carrying like a painting or something. And so the cops are like, did you see a guy run by here? He may have been carrying something that was wrapped up. And Chiyoko is like, covers for him for some reason. He's like, he went that way. And then she goes and chases him, catches up with the guy. And she's just like immediately enamored with the dude.
Yeah.
Like goes to like some kind of weird shed that he's in. He's all stabbed or something. And turns out he's like some kind of political artist.
Some sort of dissident.
What a bad decision to fall in love with a person like that. Those people are usually douches. You ever met a political artist?
First of all, I'd like to point out that you just said that falling in love is a decision.
Is it not?
No, falling in love is not a decision.
So what you're saying is that it's some kind of magical strike that could happen if someone bumps into you. Say you're in London,
You're
running
right.
for a
That's
train.
literally the only other thing it could be.
Well, what is it then if it's not a decision? Explain love to the listening audience, Kat.
I mean, listen, if tomorrow you woke up and you're like, I want to fall in love, do you think that would just happen?
No. But you decide who you are in love with.
I think that the feelings of love develop over time, whether you want them to or not.
Well, you can decide to pursue it.
Yes. You do not decide who you love. You do not decide when you fall in love, but you do decide whether or not you're going to pursue the person that you've fallen in love with.
Okay, let's get off the semantics argument here. I didn't realize that I was like, she decides to fall in love with him. I said that she decided to follow him, and then she's enamored with him.
Sure.
And wasn't like, she decided to fall in love with this guy. I would not say that.
Okay, it sounded like that.
Rewind the tape. What a bad decision to fall in love with a person like that. But she follows him to a shed. Like, he's wounded and bleeding on stuff. What was that wound all about? I don't know.
We don't know. She wraps, like, initially she finds him against a tree and she wraps it up with something that she's got, like a scarf or something, as a tourniquet.
Yeah, and then they're in some kind of weird shed murder cabin.
It seems to be like on her parents' property or something.
I don't know. Yeah.
Just because later when he does get caught, her father or something comes up to her and goes like, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. There was a strange man in our shed." And then to her separately, he's like, "Don't worry, I told him like to get to the train station. He got there safely," or something.
That was her father?
I assume so. It was an older man that seemed to be really close to her and said our shed. I assume they didn't share a shed unless they were family members. Maybe it was her grandpa or something.
I didn't take it as that was her father. And I thought that he was just telling like the general public, like, a man was in our shed, not like, hey, Chiyoko, this is our shed. I thought it was like my shed, as in like our shed, like maybe he had a family.
But then why was
else.
he in on it?
I don't know. So you're probably right, but I just didn't take it that way.
Okay.
I'm just speaking my thoughts out loud and realizing how idiotic they sound. Maybe I did say that she decided to fall in love with him. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the last moments that we have where it's kind of actually her life and not a movie that she's in, because she gets inspired to become an actress to try and find this guy, or in hopes of becoming famous enough that he might find her or become aware of her. He had given her a key and he said, "It's to the most important thing." And she was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to tell you."
Yeah, I'll tell you the next time I see you.
Yeah, and she's like,
and a pinky promise.
Yeah, it's the most sensual pinky promise I've ever seen in my life. Just the fingers wrapping around each other slowly and
to become one.
And then she goes looking for him. Apparently he's on his way to Manchuria. So she finds out that there's like a movie being filmed in Manchuria. So she's like, "Oh, this is perfect. I'm going to go be an actress in this film. And then I'm going to try and go there and find him." And then that's when she makes her first enemy, which is a rival actress who you know.
Jealous of her youth and her vibrance, and how her pursuit of one man kept her so spry through the years. Typical actress shit. Did not want to pass the torch down because she was like, I'm still the hot shit. Who the fuck is this younger Chiyoko bitch? I think her name is Eiko? Eiko? Eiko is her name. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Maybe?
Sure.
Who knows?
I'll go with that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. There was like the last line of this movie kind of brought me back a little bit from the edge of being like, this is an abomination on women empowerment. Because essentially you have this female character who is completely obsessed with a male character that she has spent very little time with, and spends her entire life trying to return this key to this man and making her entire life about that. And even this like rival actress says, oh, you know, trying to find this man keeps you spry. Like, this is what keeps you going.
Yeah, hope keeps you young.
Yeah, but hope for one person that you have a romantic interest in for your entire life, and that's what you make your life about, is so demeaning. I don't know. You know, but then like the last line of the film is her saying like, after all, what I really love is the pursuit of him. And so there's a part of me was like, oh, she realized in the end that like what she loved was the idea of being in love and the idea of wanting something so badly that you needed to go all over the world to find it. She wasn't actually in love with him. So that was like slightly redeeming, but also she spent her whole fucking life like before she realized that that's what she loved, was the pursuit of it. I don't know. I wanted her to want something else or want something more than just a man that she met once who happened to help her up.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's not romantic. It's not romantic to have a chance encounter with somebody for a very short period of time, decide that you have these intense feelings for them after...
Oh, you decide that you have intense feelings for a person?
Deciding that the feelings that you have are intense enough to do what she was doing.
Hey, look, if you're gonna levy some kind of accusation against me, and then you fuck up your own argument against it, I mean, I'm game for the sport of argument. Interesting. What was the significance of the witch woman?
It's her. She is the witch.
Okay.
It's her inner subconscious or whatever. And it took me a while, but then, because I wrote down on my notes literally like, who is this? What does she represent? But then there's this close up and you see that she has the same mole. And then she's looking at herself and she sees the witch in the reflection, repeating those words. So it's basically your inner you beating you down.
Yeah, the witch is a recurring thing that's throughout the movie, and she constantly is reliving her words to her. Because the witch tells her in a movie, but I guess she took it to heart as part of her real life or something. But the witch curses her to burn in the flames of eternal love, which sounds so devastating.
Yeah. And then she also says, like, I hate you so much I can't bear it, and I love you so much I can't bear it. Which also sounds the way, you know, a lot of people experience love. You know, in a roller coaster kind of relationship. Not a stable relationship, but, you know. Yeah.
There's this comedian, he talks about how he's like, I hate being in love, but I like being in like. He's like, being in love fucking sucks. He's like, but he said something like, the best relationship is when a man likes a woman and a woman loves a man. Because he's like, because once a man is in love, it's just like, ugh. But being in like, it's like, oh, I'm excited to see this person. But love is like work. And then you're cursed with it. Cursed. The curse of love coming this fall.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. You're always upset.
Are you? Are you kidding?
No, you've never once been upset.
Get the fuck out of my apartment.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to ask you about the witch is because as soon as the witch like said something, you like perked up and you were like, "Oh, okay," and then you started writing down notes, and I was like, "Oh, Kat's on to something." Super sleuth Kat Hamilton on the case of the witch.
I have a feeling that what I wrote down was, what does the witch represent? Because like immediately I was like, oh, she represents something. Like
Yeah.
she's obviously important, but I didn't know why yet.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all of the times that we kind of slip into movie mode where it seems like, maybe we're talking about a movie she was in, the plot always comes back to her still having this key and trying to give it back to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe in a broad sense, this is a play on the fairy tale. And maybe that, that comment at the end of saying like, the thing I was in love with the entire time was the chase.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of the villain, who's the witch, the villain the entire time was myself. I think those are the two biggest takeaways from this movie.
So why is the villain herself?
I mean, it's that negative voice or that naysayer or whatever it is in your head that's holding you back or keeping you from what you want or, fulfilling your full potential. Whatever that voice is or that sort of negative monologue that's going on.
But what is the negative monologue trying to prevent her from doing?
Anything, everything. I don't know. Like to me, that figure was just this idea that we all have some kind of like witch in our head, that is us as our own enemy in different situations. That's not the person going, go get it, go for it, you're worth it. It's that voice going like, I hate you, you'll never be anything, you don't deserve it, etc.
I disagree that that's the witch's purpose in this.
What do you think the witch's purpose is?
I think the witch's purpose is to just kind of remind her of what she's chasing, and like the curse of being in love is like something that the witch puts on her, and like the hate of like, I hate you so much is like, I hate that I'm probably never going to find this goal. I feel like it's kind of like a reminder to chase the goal. And
so
like
not that it's something inside of her, but the witch is actually something that's cursing her outside of her?
No, it's like something, well, obviously it's like something outside of her because it was part of one of her movies, I think, right?
Although the idea between cinema and reality gets really, really blurred because I doubt that she was trying to give a key back to a man in every movie she was ever in.
Yeah.
So we get an idea of this repetitive experiences that she has over and over again, trying to do this one thing. And I think we kind of get a feel for, and then she made a movie about geishas, and then she made a movie about feudal Japan, and then she made a movie about World War II, and then a post-war era, etc. But I think the actual stories that we watch of her in movies isn't what was actually happening in the movie. I think that was kind of what was happening with her emotionally at that time.
I think the significance of the witch and her words are like the curse of the interest of this. Let's just say, like in any person's life, we all have that witch. It's the curse of whatever you're interested in. And the pursuit of it, I feel like causes you to hate yourself sometimes, but also love it. You love the chase. So for me, I would say that my witch is the curse of wanting to be like a successful comedian. And I hate doing comedy a lot of times. I hate the business of comedy. It's a struggle and it's hard, and I absolutely hate that part. And I hate that I am cursed that way. I wish that I wanted something else. I wish that I found something else that I, enjoyed more and was easier to accomplish. But I also love the pursuit of that. That's what I think the witch's significance is. And I don't think it's like these negative thoughts, but it's like all of the emotions that you have when you're chasing something. And I think that she's having those emotions about, the dude that she's chasing, where she's like, I fucking hate that I'm doing this, but I love it so much. It's so exhilarating.
I don't think that idea is so different from what I'm talking about.
I thought that what you were talking about was like which was the negative thoughts that hold you back in it, where it's like, oh, this is the words of doubt in your mind. Whereas I was like, I hate that it's like, this is what I'm interested in, but I've been cursed with this interest.
There's no doubt that comes up in that?
That's another witch.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong witch. Jesus. Okay.
That's just my interpretation of it.
I mean, I think either is totally valid.
No, you're wrong.
I'll just let you enjoy that for a second. If
Kat had a knife in front of her, I would be dead.
That
would be the end of this podcast. I would be dead.
I think it's just like if there were knives attached to my pupils, I just would have like drawn lines on the ceiling. Is more accurate there. One thing I wrote down kind of early on in the film, which kind of changed for me a little bit, but not that much, was that I was surprised at how much I was enjoying the film, despite the fact that it seemed to be going to zero emotional depths.
What do you mean? Explain.
I mean, there was no point where I felt like there was a really heightened experience, sort of audience-wise, empathetically, of sadness or kind of something really touching or something where you go, oh, I really get that. Like, oh, that hits hard.
You didn't feel that way when she kind of gave up on her pursuit of the man for a bit and married a guy that she was just kind of like, yeah, he's there and he's fine enough.
He was mildly disappointed, but she had more reason to have any feelings towards him than she did towards this guy that she bumped into once.
Yeah, but if she doesn't have those feelings for that person, isn't that sad to be kind of in a loveless marriage?
In some ways, I think it would be sadder to find the dude, marry him, and then find out that they actually weren't a very good match and it ended up being loveless. I found it less sad that she went into a marriage knowing it was going to be loveless and then it turning out that way, but maybe having some somewhat pleasant times.
So I'm guessing you're not a big Cinderella fan, are you?
I mean, I haven't watched Cinderella in a long time.
It's kind of a similar, like, she goes to this ball, the prince dances with her once. It's kind of the opposite, though, as well, because she drops her glass slipper there, and then he is kind of trying to find the person whose foot the glass slipper fits. And he can't find Cinderella. And then once he does, he's like, you're the girl that I love, and now you're the princess. And that's basically the end of the movie.
But of course, she's like a pauper. She wasn't supposed to be looking like a princess on the night.
Because she had the fairy godmother,
etc. Yeah, I mean, like, the way that this girl falls in love, to me, is very, very Disney.
Dude, I mean, I lived in New York City. If all it took was to bump into somebody, I would have been in love so many times.
Well, according to your comedian friend, you would have been miserable.
Yeah.
But what I like about this is that it has the kind of Disney beginning of love. It doesn't go to a Disney end of love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we find out at some point that the man that she's been pursuing for all this time actually died.
Yeah, he died like 30 years ago.
In police custody.
Yeah. Probably more than 30 years.
Yeah, because there's a reoccurring character who's maybe, police officer, chief of police or something that she's spoken to the first time that this guy ran into her.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes after the war. And he's like missing a leg and he's
missing an eye.
Yeah,
he already had a scar on his face.
Yeah.
This dude's been through the ringer.
This guy's seen some shit and now it's only through one eye.
Wow, harsh. So rude. I'm sorry to all of our Cyclopses listening.
Oh my God. And he's trying to apologize to her about things, and he gives her a letter that he's written to her, and she runs off to read it. And then this guy who's been filming this documentary and interviewing her, he used to be maybe like a production assistant or something at the studio. And he goes up to this man, puts a hand on his shoulder, and then the guy admits to just this kid that he actually tortured this guy to get information, and
He tortured the man that Chiyoko is in love with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And eventually killed him.
Yeah. Bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of find out that, she's been on this sort of wild goose chase all this time. Although, of course, I didn't particularly believe in the goose chase that she was on. So it's not like that was wildly disappointing, I think, as an audience member. I don't know who would buy that relationship in the first place and go, oh my God, I can't believe he's not there anymore and she can't find him. But in the end, the thing that she says about the fact that she was always in love with the pursuit of him, not actually him, and she realized that, in some ways, like, there's no loss because she was never really in pursuit of this person. She was just always wrapped up in this idea of pursuit. So she wanted to be on a wild goose chase. She loved the chase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you think that's a good thing? Because if you're in love with the chase, then you never get anything. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But if you just that's always something that kind of...
But if you're in love with the chase and you stay in the chase for your entire life, then not only do you never get the thing that you wanted, but you also always have the thing that you want.
You always get the thing that you wanted.
Yeah.
Which is the chase.
And maybe it's, a metaphor for the way people pursue relationships now and how much more they enjoy the chase or the thing that they can't get but want.
Yeah.
Versus actually having what they want.
That's with everything though too. Like not even just love, like career stuff. You can be like, oh, I want to do this. And then once you get it, you're like, oh, this sucks. This is my dream job. And now my dream job is work. You know what I mean? And it's not fun. But it's like the idea of it is so much more fun than actually getting it.
Yeah, what's weird about it for me is that, in some ways this film is about a woman's career.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might expect that if it was about a woman's career, that you might explore the reasons why she was so focused on the career or why she was climbing up. And you might think there might be some motivations there about, women and work and careers. But the entire time she was just interested in chasing a man, and her career happened to be happening on the sideline and just happened by itself. And she just kind of kept getting roles. But what she really wanted was to find this dude. But then it turns out what she really, really wanted was just to want to find this dude, which she was doing the whole time.
Yeah, but I think through her want of finding the man, and like the reason why she wanted to be an actress was to become so famous that this guy would find her.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of reason enough,
For what?
For her goal of finding the man, or her perceived goal of finding the man,
That her reason for climbing up the sort of actor's ladder, career ladder, is trying to get the guy's attention.
Yeah, I also think that it's not like she was being tortured through her entire career of being an actress. Like she had to have enjoyed it a little bit, So it's like she had some fun times along the way, and she really enjoyed her life while pursuing this guy, but then realizing like, oh, it wasn't ever really about the guy, it was about the chase,
Yeah, and of course...
Because if it was about the guy... Sister, I got some bad news for you. He dead. He been dead. An interesting recurring thing in this movie too is our earthquakes.
There's a lot of earthquakes.
There's 3 significant earthquakes, and they all take place on 3 significant things during Chiyoko's life. The first thing is that she's born during an earthquake. The second thing is when there's another earthquake later on in her life. That's the day that she decides that she's quitting acting and she's giving up on her pursuit of the man
Yeah,
because
because she loses the key that day.
she loses the key, and she also realizes that she was so, I guess, old at that point that it'd be hard for the guy to recognize her.
Yeah, which was another sort of like, just kick in the vagina of feminism. That sort of like, well, I'm too old now, so I'm not the young maid that he would have wanted. He would have wanted me when I was younger, and now I'm too old, and he won't want me anymore.
See, I disagree with that. I think that it was more of like he won't recognize her. He wouldn't like.
She could
know who
make
he
that
is.
clear very quickly.
She
I mean,
did.
she could
said
clear that up in a sentence or two. But
Yeah, but it's also
she
like
literally said, "I'm too old."
Yeah, but she said that he wouldn't recognize her anymore as the young person that he ran into or whatever.
But I don't think that's like he won't recognize me immediately and then I can't rectify that by having a chat with him and letting him know who I am. I think that was like he won't recognize me as the person that I think he had feelings for back then because I was young and beautiful then.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But of course, the last earthquake is when she dies. And interestingly enough, these earthquakes all correlate to certain earthquakes that happen in history. So the first earthquake was the Great Kanto earthquake, which actually puts her birth at around 1923. She gave up her career after another earthquake, and this is perhaps
Hold on. If she was born in 1923, hey, that's the year that both my grandma and grandpa were born. Fun fact about Kat. But that means that in the early 1930s, during that like Chinese-Japanese war, when that guy would have been a dissident, she would have been like 12.
Yeah, I mean, that was another problem that I had with it. Like, the guy looked so much older than her when he ran into her, and she's like, "We're in love." I was like, this is a little
Ugh.
inappropriate.
All right. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
The second earthquake was based on the Niigata earthquake, which occurred around 1964 in June. And the last earthquake that she died during occurred on October 6th in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So, little fun earthquake facts for you.
That's almost, more of that sort of magical realism idea that you put real events into something that has some kind of magical elements.
Yeah, well, I mean, the character of Chiyoko is kind of, sort of based on two actresses that Khan kind of like melded together.
Yeah, I'd also read that somewhere, but I kind of wonder what parts were based on which actress.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like, what parts of this were so complicated, or how much of her personality did we really see that would suggest that it's half this actress and half this other actress?
Well, here we go. Chiyoko herself is somewhat reminiscent of Setsuko Hara, a famed Japanese movie star of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, who likewise withdrew suddenly from public life. So I guess that's a little bit of it, a little bit of like the becoming a recluse after being a famed movie star.
Sure.
And Khan also recognized this influence in an interview, also citing Hideko Takamine. But he also insisted that Chiyoko is primarily a universal human character.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say that somebody's partially based off of a character based on one event that happened in their lives. Like, they're like, oh, they suddenly decided they weren't going to be an actress anymore. They, fell out of the spotlight and became a recluse. And it's like, well, that's one event. That's one thing that happened to them. You can't be like, so this character's based off of them because they kind of did the same thing once.
We can say it was like loosely based on them. That
Yeah,
could
or
inspire the imagination.
that part of the character's life was inspired by something that happened in another actress's life. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like all those movies that are like based on true events, like the Amityville Horror, and then you watch it and there's like all this ooze coming from the wall and demons everywhere. It's like, that shit's not fully true, but I can see how it was inspired and kind of, I guess, quote unquote, based on true events. Like,
right.
You could say that this movie is quote unquote based on the life of these two
or based
actresses.
on true people, sure.
Yeah, but like it's a very loose inspiration, I feel like. I wouldn't be like, this is a documentary about these people.
No, it's like, I read a magazine once. It had actresses in it. I got some ideas about what actresses are like. Like,
ripped from the headlines.
I read the cover of People magazine, and then I wrote a movie.
I wrote a movie. It's called The Sexiest Man of the Year. One of the characters that annoyed me the most was the documentary camera guy. I was so annoyed by him and
Yeah.
his sardonic, and he's like constantly annoyed as he's being taken through this magical trip through this woman's life.
I feel like that's supposed to be some kind of comic relief because I like the idea that this guy who's admired this actress for so many years, he's totally in on it. Every story, he is suddenly in the costume and he's like part of it. And the entire time, just everything about the camera guy was just like millennial to me. It's
See, and I hated
just like
that.
the millennial camera guy. I don't know, like, would you have preferred it if the camera person was way more into it the whole time or also wearing costume and you didn't have those moments of this guy being like, the fuck is going on?
I see. I know that he was supposed to be a comic relief character. I didn't find it funny at all. I found it more annoying. I would have liked it more if, he started not interesting because at the beginning of the movie, the Genya, who is the guy that's making a documentary about Chiyoko, he's like kind of forcing this camera guy to go into it, and the camera guy's like, "This is just a fucking job for me." I would have liked it if he grew more and more interested and then became invested in the story as much as Genya. And I think that there was a little bit of that, but way late into the movie, he's still like cracking jokes and being like, "Oh, I wish that she would have given me all of her money."
But I think that he's also this really big foil to what their characters are, both Genya and to the actress whose name I can't remember. Chiyoko. Yeah, to Chiyoko. Because here are these two people who really want something, who have this like huge drive to go for something. And they're really passionate. Like this kid isn't, and I think you kind of need something in the movie to show how passionate they are, just to have something to reflect and be like, oh, this guy doesn't give a shit about anything. Like this guy does not care. He's in a fucking magical world and he still doesn't care.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I wish that he would have gotten swept up in it because you can still show that like these two people like care and have Genya explain like, no, this is like such an important movie and like I love this movie, and him at the beginning of it being like, yeah, whatever, old timer. And then as the story's going along and it's getting more and more emotional and you can see her, her pursuit of this guy and like all these amazing, incredible things that she accomplished and did just for this one purpose, have him kind of get swept up in it. And then when she says like, I gave up on pursuing him and pursuing my acting career because I knew he wouldn't recognize me anymore, have him kind of have the camera guy at that point be like, what? You can't just give up, what I mean? I would have liked it more if he got more swept up in it. And I think that he kind of got a bit more invested, but it
not as
wasn't
invested
enough.
as you wanted him to
Not
be.
enough for me.
So really what you would have wanted is that one story point. Like that's what it would have added to the story for you.
Yeah, it would have made his character less annoying to me. Like he reminded me of like I like getting swept up in the magic. Like I love going to Disneyland and people that are like, I fucking hate Disneyland. So stupid. You wait in a bunch of lines. It's like, yeah, but it's the most magical place on earth. Like, what do you like to do? Like, that's the thing that I would say to that person because he's so sardonic and he's above everything. It's like, what do you like to do? What makes you? That's one thing that I always like want to ask people. Is like,
You just
what
hate
makes
people who don't experience joy.
Well, I just like what makes you happy? Like, what gets you giddy? Like, what do you get amped and excited about?
Yeah.
Because that's what I like to see in people. Because if you have, everybody should, I feel like, have that. And if you don't, I feel like you're missing out on so much in life. And I have met people that I'm like, I just don't know. I can't fathom like what makes you excited. Like, what's one thing? Like, what do you collect? Like, do you collect fucking, I don't know, stamps or something that you're like, dude, I could talk to you about this fucking stamp for all day and be like, dude, this is like a 1923 stamp, blah, blah, blah. I love that in people. And I know people like this camera guy, and I hate those people. because it's like then you don't love anything, you know? And that's just so sad to me. If you're not getting excited about something, like I want to know what makes you excited. That's what this dude fucking reminded me of, and I hated it. Did you like Genya's I guess his story arc? Like I thought that he was just going to be a documentary dude, but it turned out that he was kind of like vital to Chiyoko's story even.
I'm not sure he had much of an arc. I'm not sure what he learned or how he changed or how he grew from the film. You kind of get these backstory moments. So you kind of see how he grew through his life.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you get the impression that he's gotten to a place where he's like, well, I'm still working in like TV or the industry, but I'm not working in the way that I wanted. I wanted to be the big director, and that never happened. I was like the kid on set who got shit on, and I got somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he sort of achieved his goal of meeting this actress that he was really enamored with, and I think that it lived up to every expectation he had. In a lot of these kinds of stories, you often get this message of don't meet your heroes kind of message, that they're always going to disappoint you, or you're going to have idealized them past where they should really have any kind of importance in your life. And in some ways, like Chiyoko had that kind of hero in her life, and she never got to meet him. And thank God, because really all she really loved was the chase the whole time. And it would have become impossible to meet him because he died. And then this documentarian has this hero, and it is Chiyoko, and he does meet her, and she lives up to every expectation he could have ever imagined, and his life was in a lot of ways very ordinary. And I don't know what message you take from that as far as his character arc goes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm not sure anyone changed from the beginning of that documentary interview to the end of it, unless during that interview is when Chiyoko realized that she always loved the chase, and that she was never after that man in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. There wasn't any kind of I feel like there wasn't any kind of growth with him. And once he started to figure into the plot more, I thought that there was going to be some kind of big reveal about him. Like that he was a major player in something, or blah, 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 or like how he came into possession of the key. Because that's not really, he just kind of offhandedly is like, oh, we found it.
I did kind of like that the reveal of the key and how important it was, because initially it's just a gift that he gives to her at the beginning of this interview, and it seems pretty casual compared to, and maybe he wouldn't have known what this key meant to her, and for her at this time, maybe she was long past needing this key in her life to, for whatever reason. But even though she was like clutching it in her death grasp and saying, well, now I can go chase him in my afterlife. But what I loved is the fact that throughout the movie, you get a more strong idea of just how important this key was to her. And like, have you ever had something that was super, super important to you, in that sort of way, in a way that nobody else would kind of think was very important, but if you lost it, you'd freak out?
Probably.
A lucky something or other?
I can't really think of anything offhand. Like I've been wearing these wristbands for probably 5 years now.
Wow.
I don't really ever take them off, except for like sometimes when I would be doing like circus stuff, I would have to take them off, but I just never take them off. But they don't particularly remind me of a certain time in my life. They don't take me back, and if I lost them, I wouldn't be like, I need to find them. I'd be like, whatever.
What, you wouldn't care?
I just put something else on my wrist.
You just need something on your wrist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have something like that? Like I guess in Inception, they would be like a totem, something that only you know, and you know the importance of.
Exactly. I'm a very sentimental person. But the one thing that comes to mind strongly is one of the first times I ever thought that I was in love. And it was semi-unrequited. There were some real mixed signals. But
Was it that man in London that helped you up?
go fuck yourself.
Is it the boots that you were wearing that
I'm
day?
sorry. So what you're suggesting is the first time I thought I was in love was after I got married.
Maybe you thought that you were loving. You had never experienced a real love like the man helping you up from the rain.
Right. In high school. But this guy and I had like gone on a walk somewhere, and at some point he'd like picked up a flower and he handed it to me. And I was like, I'll keep this flower forever. Because I was a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I wrote in journals at the time, and I took the flower and I pressed it in the journal. And then I went on some kind of a school trip that was an overnight trip, and I was sharing a room with a girl who I was finding kind of increasingly annoying for various reasons. But I had opened up my journal. I had taken the pressed flower out of it and put it onto the bedside table that was like shared between the two beds, and then started writing in my journal about the day and whatever else. And she was kind of just like tidying up, just like cleaning things up around the room. And she picked up this like pressed flower and just crushed it in her hands and sprinkled it into a trash can.
Wow.
And I lost my shit. But like, how the fuck would she know? It looks like a dried leaf that like somebody's like brought in on their shoe that just happens to be on the table. She would have no idea that that had any kind of like emotional significance to me. But you know, I can imagine you have some like an attachment like that to a thing, and you've lost it. That like, I just totally understand that sudden like panic and needing to have it, and it's like nothing is okay until I have this thing.
And how long had you had the flower in your journal for?
Probably like a year.
And you were like, how old?
Maybe 14, 15.
Okay, so I feel like you'd probably be around the same age as Chiyoko was with the key.
Actually, wait, no. Let me think. I would have been 16. I was 16.
Okay.
So maybe slightly older than
Yeah.
she was when she got it.
Yeah.
But it's a very sentimental age.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And she chose to make her whole life about the fucking key.
Yes.
Do you think that if your annoying female friend hadn't crushed the flower, you would have kept it in that journal forever?
I don't know how long I would have kept it. I have kept an alarming number of things that are sentimental things. And I have met people that I've talked to about it, and they've been like, oh, I'd burn that shit. They're just like, oh, I immediately get rid of it. Like, why would you hold on to that? And other people are like, why would you ever get rid of that? When I've been like, I'm thinking about like, you know, tossing some of this stuff out. And they're like, why would you ever do that? I think there's
Like stuff that like an ex gave you or something?
yeah, just something that's important to you, and you know, for whatever reason, like letters that people wrote to you in your childhood, or you know, stuff that your dad gave you when you were 14, whatever, any number of things.
Yeah.
And you know, I was listening to something at some point that was talking about these sort of like confronting things from your past, especially with sentimental value. And one person really wanted to get rid of all this stuff that somebody was trying to give back to them. It's basically like somebody had found a suitcase of letters on the corner of a New York street, and it was a letter, like just this whole like suitcase was full of letters that had been written many years previously, but it was all from the same person to the same person. And it was, as it turns out, you know, you could read all these letters and kind of like decipher from one side how this relationship that was long distance was panning over this long period of time, but it had obviously been abandoned on the street corner. And it had passed through a couple of hands, and then the person who had it was like, I don't need this anymore. She was about to like move in with a serious partner. She's like, this first time I'm moving in with somebody, I need to stop having a relationship with these mysterious people's relationship and start focusing on my own relationship. I need to get rid of this. And what ideas this gives me about what love should be, or what it isn't, or when you lose it, whatever. And the person who picks it up is this guy who does this podcast. It's all about finding people who've lost contact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to find both of the people, both the person who wrote the letters and the person who's receiving the letters. When he finally finds the woman who had written the letters, she said, "I don't want those."
Yeah.
She's like, "I don't want them. They're not who I am anymore. And I dare you to let go of them too."
Mm.
And one thing that he had written back to her was,
"But I just started this podcast. This is like a big episode for me. You're kind of shitting on it." I guess subscribe or leave a 5-star review. I don't know. Tell a friend. Be a friend, tell a friend. I don't know.
It was really, really beautiful because kind of, what he said was, keeping things from my past or going back to things from my past are not about seeing the ways I've changed, but more about seeing all the ways in which I haven't changed. Seeing that kind of string that goes through my life, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, seeing which of those things stays the same, whichever things are constant. I think that's who I really am. And sometimes holding on to those things reminds me of who I really am.
Okay. I can see that.
And that point hit me so hard, and I thought it was so lovely. And I shared this with one of my friends who's like very anti-keeping things, and at the end of it they were still like, burn the shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can also see like moving on from the past. Like I could see both sides of that argument. What that guy said about keeping the things and learning about who he is through those things and finding the through lines and blah blah blah. That's a very valid sentiment, and I enjoy that. That's a really cool thought on keeping those things. But I also understand the people who are like, this was a different time. I've grown as a person. I don't want to be reminded of that period of my life because I feel like I've gotten better, and that's in the past, and I'm moving forward and I'm becoming a better person even tomorrow. So why would I dwell on the past, especially if it's like a relationship thing? I could see people wanting to be like, I don't even want to remember dating that person or blah blah blah. It caused me so much hardship and heartbreak. So I've taken what I've learned from that, and I have it, but I don't need physical reminders of that.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a really big sort of red flag for the fact that those things aren't healed and you're not okay with them.
Yeah, do you think if somebody has stuff from their ex still, that it's a red flag? Like, oh, you're not over your ex or whatever?
I don't know. In some ways, it's almost a red flag if they've decided to burn all of that shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you can read it either way. If somebody's holding on to every single thing, they're like, "Oh, this is my ex's hoodie." You're like, "Why do you still have that?" Like that.
Next question.
That could lead to some awkward conversation. Like if you decide, I'm in a relationship with somebody, and then like you start to learn like, oh, it kind of feels like you're not really over the person that you were with before.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you still have this? Why is this thing still here? Why do you have that? And I think there's a healthy amount of letting go and getting rid of. And then there's a very unhealthy amount of I'm burning everything and destroying everything, and I'm drawing black marker over their face in any picture they were ever in with me, and
with
then
murderous intent.
And then there's also another extreme of like, I've kept everything. I still have a picture of us on my bedside table. Or it's like, oh, that's a red flag. Like that's definitely too far.
All right, everybody listening, lesson learned, keep a couple things. Keep just a couple things. Burn a few things. Fire's fun.
Yeah, fire is fun, yeah.
Put some marshmallows on that shit. Get a s'mores going. But keep some stuff so you're not a fucking psychopath. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, what if they gave you something that you really like?
Yeah, I mean, I have like a jacket that I still wear that an ex bought for me. And like, I fucking love this jacket.
Yeah.
I don't care that we aren't together anymore. I'm still wearing this bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, keep some stuff Set aflame other stuff.
Set aflame your old feelings.
Whatever you're like if they gave you a gift that you weren't too thrilled about, you can burn that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, oh, great, I can finally burn these pants. I never wore these pants. These pants suck.
Yeah, and you know what? If you live in California and it's somewhere that's like already currently on fire, for example,
just toss
like
it in there. Burn an effigy safely in the street, in a concrete area. Make it dust. What'd you think of the animation in the movie?
I liked it. There's something about it that is very Satoshi Kon. Like the characters look very much of his design, and I don't quite know how to describe that exactly.
One thing that I noticed is that all of their eyes are black.
Yeah, or variations of like very dark colors. There's not any really light colors, but sometimes it'll be like a super dark grayish green.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this, especially the background characters, look to me more Japanese than more anime characters usually do. You look at a crowd of people in a Satoshi Kon film and you're like, oh, those are definitely Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment where I saw you like furiously scribbling where it almost got very 2D, where we kind of see like sort of passing, it's almost like they'd cut shapes out and put the cell kind of moving between the different cutout shapes.
Yeah, I wrote, what I was writing down was the transitions in this movie are very creative. Like when you were going through it, like in the early part of the movie, you're going through Chiyoko's early life, like from birth to the time that she becomes an actress, or at least is offered a job as an actress. And it's like she's moving and then she'd pause and then the background would change into a different scene and then she'd continue.
That was beautiful.
And that happens throughout the movie. I feel like there are some transitions, like especially when you're kind of rapidly going through her film career. It'll just be like this transition from one movie to another movie, and I thought it was like really, really cool.
And I think that it's so kind of, I don't know, it supports that sort of blurring of the lines between realities on whatever level you're talking about of this film on a whole. And I kind of love when something like the animation or sound design or music really reflects some kind of a bigger theme that the story is reflecting.
Yeah. I also thought an interesting choice too is as she's going through her photographs, the color palette changes when she's going through her memories, and you can tell because like her early memories are kind of more of like a sepia, black and whitish type of thing, and I feel like that was like it. I can't think of the word, but it would resemble like what those photographs, because she's going through like a picture book as well,
sort of desaturated.
Yeah, it would kind of match the color palette of the pictures, and as she kind of goes more and more through her history, and as it's in like the 60s and there'd be like color television and color movies, the color palette of her memories and the past also updates, because there's like a big distinction between the color palette of like the present, where it's like vibrant and very bright, and when you go into her memories it's a bit more dull, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite sort of time era that we explored?
Definitely not that era where she had a mullet. I thought that was she had some terrible haircuts throughout this movie. I really enjoyed when they were in the like she was a geisha / samurai film. I thought that was really cool looking because it was a perfect blend of a little bit of the dulling of the colors, but also you could tell like this is when they were just starting to introduce color into film, I think. I think she does say that she's a geisha in the film, and then she pulls out a katana. So I was like, all right, I'm in. I want to see that movie.
I kind of loved how the geisha in the background looked very much to me like classical Japanese art, when you see sort of like geishas painted on things.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool.
There's a mention of that in one of the articles I read, and I kind of forgot what it was saying, but it was something like he was trying to match all of the different Japanese art styles through this movie.
I could see that.
It was something along those lines, I believe.
What
And
a
yeah, I
cool
completely
goal.
agree. Yeah. Well, dude, this dude was fucking imaginative as hell.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that he died when he did, because it's just like such an imagination, and I would have loved to have seen more things from him, you know? It's a bummer.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I can understand why. Is it Dream Machine? Is the film
I think it was called The Dream Machine.
that he died during the production of? I know that they've tried to find other people to take it over, and they just haven't found somebody who matches his style. And it's like, I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, how do you find somebody who can match this style? We've seen at this point a lot of anime movies.
yeah.
His films really stand out.
Yeah, and they are very distinct.
Yeah.
I thought the voice cast was really good. No one really stood out that annoyed me, except for I didn't like the camera guy's voice either. I
Sure.
thought the camera guy just annoyed the hell out of me. And the soundtrack was really synthy and 80s feeling.
Yeah, I didn't particularly hate anybody on it. I thought at the times when I noticed the soundtrack, there were some like pretty fun synthy stuff going on. But then sometimes it was kind of background and video gamey, but worked. I
Yeah.
never thought there was any time where I listened to the music and I was like, this does not work.
Yeah.
I think there's one time I was like, oh, Geisha's just got synthy. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
Geisha meets synthwave. I'm into it. Like, let's do this. But so there's like some odd combinations, but nothing that I felt was weird or, you know, I liked it.
Yeah, I like the soundtrack as well. I'm not going to go out and like pursue listening to this soundtrack, but like it was good. It was good enough. you know?
Yeah.
There are some movies or series that I'm like, oh, I gotta fucking like. Today I was listening to the there's a series called Fate Zero that Kat and I are big fans of. I was listening to the Fate Zero soundtrack today, just getting fucking pumped because it's like an epic soundtrack. And it's like choral and like a lot of like intense music. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't be going to a store and looking for the OST
Yeah.
for this one.
But, you know, good enough. With that being said,
I want to ask you first.
you want to ask me for... I think that we should say these at the same time, because I think if I have to guess, I think it's going to be the same number.
Do you?
And I now, me saying that, I feel like you're going to be like, I'm going to throw him off now and do some kind of like
I wouldn't
weird
do that.
point.
Does that sound like me?
Yes, absolutely.
Why? Why does that sound like me to you?
I don't know. You want to do it on the count of 3?
Okay.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 8.
9.
Oh.
See, I was going to go for 8.5. But then
I
as
was
soon...
going to go for 8.5 too.
No way!
Well, you know, if you
That's so
average hours
funny.
out,
Yeah.
it's an 8.5. So
you
there
know
we
what?
go.
Let's settle on 8.5 for
Yeah.
this from both of us.
I was going to make it an 8.5, but then when I was like doing the we should say it at the same time thing, I wanted to simplify it.
Me too. And that's the thing is like you were saying, oh, you're going to put like a point on it. And I was like, oh, I was going to give it an 8.5. And now you've like accused me of like trying to make this difficult or trying to make it seem like I had something different. So I guess I'll round it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I thought it was a really, really good movie. I would recommend it to people. I wouldn't recommend it to like people that are into action or something, but people that enjoy good auteur, artistic, kind of a bit more on the emotional side movies. Well, this is our episode on Millennium Actress. This has been the Anime Movie Podcast. Thank you for listening, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.